Hello and welcome to our live session on PRPOI, the award-winning platform for upskilling in public relations. Thank you for joining us today for this session. I'm your host Tarunjit Ratan, and I'm keen on getting started on our discussion today on a very pressing matter as we navigate the PR and journalism chaos. So let's dive head first into the tumultuous sea of PR journalism chaos. Buckle up because it's chaotic, and trust me, it's getting wilder by the minute. Things are changing at a very rapid pace in both the PR and media industry, and we are also busy adapting to it. But speed also breeds friction, and if you're a human, friction seems to bring out a lot of uh, uh, you know built up emotions as well. Lately, we've seen a few heavy punches being thrown around, some high, some low. Today, we've gathered a fantastic panel to help us navigate through this chaos and through these punches, aiming for a collaborative and productive approach that benefits both PR and media professionals. Leading our discussion today is our guest host, Komal Lath, the founder of Tute Consult. So let me just add her on. Hey Komal. Komal comes with over 20 plus years in the game. She's a master at integrating brand communication, strategic counsel, and PR. When she's not guiding clients towards success, she's either molding young minds in prestigious colleges or dropping truth bombs about PR challenges. So, without much further ado, let's welcome Komal. Thank you, Komal, for steering this panel today.
Most excited and thank you. The much needed debate and conversation here, and always good to be a part of the fraternity.
Absolutely, absolutely. Let's have a great discussion. But before I pass the baton on to you, a quick note to our viewers: you can catch all our action on our live panel discussions on our YouTube, LinkedIn, and Facebook channels. For today, keep adding those questions in the comments section, tagging the panel, and we will answer them for you as best as we can. Let's keep the conversation alive and find the path together. Over to you, Komal.
Superb. So, very excited to moderate this panel. Let me first begin by introducing our panelists. Um, the first one being Sonali, her full name being Sonali Sokhal. She is an ex-journalist turned PR pro. She runs Intelliquo and an experienced founder with a demonstrated history of working in the PR and communication space. She's very skilled in crisis, corporate communications, marketing strategy, social media, and entertainment. She's also done a stint in journalism with lifestyle media before entering PR. Working extensively across consumer brands, we're very excited to have you, Sonali, and welcome aboard.
Thank you so much, Komal. I'm very excited to be here today.
Lovely. Introducing our second panelist. His name is Gaurav Laghate. Needs no introduction, but for the benefit of everybody, he's the senior editor at Mint and also he heads the Bureau for Consumer, which is FMCG, consumer durables, retail, media, advertising, hospitality, luxury, and the business of sports. Let me catch my breath. An accomplished business journalist with a career spanning over 16 years, he's reported on the significant advancements in the media and entertainment industry, as well as the business of sports. Beyond his role as a journalist, Gaurav is also recognized as a steadfast observer of the media landscape and has spoken at several very prominent events and panels. Welcome aboard, Gaurav.
Thank you, Komal. Lovely to be here.
And last but not the least, we have, since this is a very balanced panel or so we believe, Deeptie Sethi of PRCAI. She's been part of the PR space for over 3 decades, playing the role of a trusted advisor and a business partner, offering communication counsel to strengthen the corporate communication, bringing along communities and driving business growth. She led the communications for BBC World, Ford Motor in various capacities and played a very crucial role as the first ever CEO of PRCAI, leading the charge to transform the association. She offers strategic interventions for 100 plus members, including PR consultancies. Thank you coming on board, Deeptie.
Thank you, Komal. Thanks for the warm welcome. A very good morning to all my co-panelists.
So to set the stage in motion, the way Tarunjit said that, there is a lot of fiction, but also coming together of this now divided industry, or so it's made to believe. Let me put an opening question for all my panelists to begin with. The header being navigating the PR journalism chaos, or calm, in bracket as I say it. We are looking at a very evolving relationship between these two entities, as I may call it. with a lot of changes happening at a very rapid pace, journalists have now to be upskilling very quickly to social media and reporting across both mediums, PR being now from 24/7 to nanosecond service delivery. I would love to have a take of each of you before we begin in the fuel to the fire. Let's begin with you, Deeptie.
Okay, well, I would say, Komal, it's an interesting topic about navigating from chaos, but I would say it's navigating the chemistry. So let's replace chaos with the chemistry that we really need to find the right chemistry between PR and media. We've often heard a lot of PR professionals saying it's a symbiotic relationship. And I've been into this industry for 30 years. As you rightly said, the environment around is changing. So I think it's right time for us to understand that how we all are facing in this very professional skills and jobs that we do both at the media side and the public relations sides, to understand these challenges better and look into those opportunities, because I think in the world we are, news and information has new dynamics, right? And both of us have very important roles to play. I think, be it the economy, be it the businesses and the people we are serving, they all deserve to understand public relations in a different light. So I'll speak more about public relations to your question. It is the time when we are just not talking about the seat on the table. I think we are making the table there. So, I think it's important for everybody to recognize what we bring to that table, how we can shape that conversations, and media is a very important partner in that. And let's start with that and talk about that chemistry that we can bring together to make this a win for everybody.
Sounds very, very promising as a relationship, Deepti. Gaurav, over to you about this chemistry or chaos or calm.
No, I would say, I would agree with the Deepti. It's more of a chemistry, but unfortunately, what happens is that oftentimes, more often than less, we find PRs and journalists at the opposite end of the spectrum, right? Uh, for me, I believe, and as again Deepti said, that's symbiotic. I believe it has to be a symbiotic relationship, and both of us are doing our jobs. Our job is to write and report. Your job is to, facilitate that information. So I don't see why the conflict, unless either from one side it becomes too aggressive, and deadlines which are not very realistic, and from other side, if rather than being a facilitator you start stopping the flow of information. That's the only the reason when the conflict occurs. Otherwise, if we do our job, if you do your job, there has to be a symbiotic relationship.
Sounds great. I think the Venn diagram, the common space is what we're all trying to find here. So, Nani, your take on it, especially because you come from the journalism side to the PR side. You've seen both ends of the spectrum and yet discovering. What's your take on this?
So I see us all as partners in crime. We are all navigating a space that is increasingly being used by brands to try to own the storytelling narrative. I never forget, many years ago, one of my bosses told me कि journalist का भी अच्छा PR होना चाहिए, personal. The best, it's natural as PR professionals, we always go to the journalist who has a nose for news, who is keen to look at a story, and you'll see that they get the best stories or the best breaking stories. And I think it's the same for PR professionals. If we are the people, the PR professionals who understand journalism, who understand content, who understand what is a journalist looking for, they are the ones who get to crack the best stories with the right journalist, right? So we are partners in crime, and I think both PR professionals and journalists today are navigating a space of chaos created by brands and the third parties who want to own the media in a very different way.
Lovely. I think my first question, therefore, putting this absolutely into context, Sonali, is we're dealing with an age where suddenly there is quick satiation, right? Like instant consumption of news. Hence, even journalists have to keep pace. So do PR professionals. You're suddenly looking at many mediums, and it can get overwhelming. What is your take on the challenge or opportunity it presents? And Sonali, let me start with you since the segue is from you. What's your quick take on this quick gratification that is required?
So, Komal, I think more than social media, is digital marketing that has created these problems. And I see this in a lot of, see, it also depends on clients. Young startups are very aggressive. They treat PR like a plug and play device. They want everything yesterday. They think they can own the space and they think they can bulldoze their way to good stories, you know. But legacy brands or evolved brands know that this is a long term storytelling narrative. And another thing that I am going to say is, I think social media and the whole influencer space, even if you had asked me about this question 6 to 8 months ago, I would say, I told you, social media rules, blah, blah, blah. But today, there's a new question which every brand is asking, and they're saying, whom are the influencers influencing? It's become a social media has become a very strong white noise. Credibility of journalism is here to stay. So unless you're selling a lipstick and you want it flying off your shelves, there you need social media. But if you want to tell your brand story, you still need journalism and you need credible journalism.
With you on that, daggers are out. I think the debate more is how do you sort of bring up to speed the various mediums. Gaurav, with a big smile, I know you want to tackle this. Tell me your take on it.
No, 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 I completely agree. I mean, the last few months, the way we have seen influencers getting or trying to be in the role of journalism, I mean, come on. But again, you said digital marketing, but even your clients, for that matter, they are also trying to push influencers everywhere. But you have to, I mean, they have to understand that what credibility a journalist brings. I mean, we live for our bylines, right? If I am putting my name to a story, it's my credibility on the line. So I will always try to be very fair, very thorough, and with deep understanding of the subject. I will do, unlike the influencers where today they are promoting one brand, tomorrow somebody else. And there are, while different bodies are trying to bring in some sort of what you call guidelines, but frankly there are none. So that is a very big pain point we are also facing.
Sonali, you were wanting to add something
It was
there, so
interesting
hand
to
go up.
hear that I'm picking up Gaurav's point that they don't do their research. So I don't know if you know, but about a year ago almost, there was this huge scandal about this one startup event where the biggest influencers in the industry had endorsed that particular event and they'd been paid tons of money to endorse it. And they had said this person is coming and that person is coming. And ultimately, when those poor people who paid lakhs to be part of that event realized that nobody is coming, none of those investors committed were coming. And these are credible blue tick verified names with lakhs of following on Instagram. So you can, if they are setting this trend, and this is just one trend that I'm talking about, if they are setting this trend, you can imagine how chaotic is this. And I'm so sorry to sound like this, but how chaotic is this space? Because today it's become what it was a year ago. It's become a wild west. Everybody wants to make their money. Every influencer is ready to endorse 30 brands a month just to be able to cash in on this new fame which brands are doing. And unfortunately there is a lot of compromise on credibility right now.
So, Deeptie, would love your take on it because I think you would have to also have a very balanced view on all mediums that are evolving,
Yeah.
and it's the chemistry that plays in well.
So,
What's your
yeah.
take on this?
So I would say, I think as communicators, the role that we all have is being master storytellers. But what's changing is that we have to navigate to understand the ecosystem that's being influenced, paid, earned, owned from that space. And how do we excel in that? We reinvent, we reskill ourselves to be able to manage that. I think that is where, to me, is the biggest opportunity. Talking about what Sonali and Gaurav were saying about this whole new world of influencer, and we recently had a very good session with ASCII, right? And they are watching. So I think they are looking at the space of advertising. In fact, this is what Manisha Kapoor mentioned, who's the CEO for ASCII. And she said, we had 8,000 complaints last year, right? And they are also navigating this way from advertising. We know today we all are producing content. So I think the more these kind of watchdogs are there, the opportunity of being credible, I think that is what should not be taken away. And Sonali, to the point you're making about event, I think it's about the life cycle of the brand. I've represented brands like Ford, the BBC. there's a hell lot that goes into it, right? To understand what's the credible narrative, what's the right way to do. And we also have to recognize there is an entire change in storytelling in India per se. Our government is using PR to tell story, digital, social to tell story. So there is a big change that's happening. The startup and the unicorn industry, which wants quick wins, a lot of that is influencing it. But I think from this chaos, really, more professionalism should come forward, right? Because when mistakes are made, mistakes are seen, in this environment as well. You can't hide the dirty linen under the carpet today.
It's
So
all on the gram.
absolutely. So one
Which
mistake can pay you, you may have to pay a heavy price. So I think people are on that learning curve and they will get that. But I think the future is about being a master in telling credible stories and credible narratives.
brilliant response on that, Dipti, which brings me to my second question on this panel. We are all storytellers here, right? One's a medium to tell the story, weaving in. One is the output of putting those into beautiful words and getting it. So, Gaurav, this question, let's begin with you. What is that fine line between how much of a story can be told by a communications person and how much can be, not the word dictated, but influenced, especially given on the background of a recent pink paper reporting just in jest? So, what do you think is a permissible line saying, okay, tell me so much or not tell me so much? As a journalist, what's your take on it?
No, as a journalist, I'm very clear that you might want to pitch something, but ultimately it has to make a for a story for my paper or for my publication, right? So every publication has a different way of storytelling. So a mint is different than a ET, and from a Times of India or from any particular channel. Like for Bombay Times is a different kind of storytelling, a different kind of reportage. You can't have one size fit all. The issue is that a lot of people don't understand and start pitching the same thing to everyone. It's like carpet bombing. You can't have that. I will only do a story if it fits my profile of readers, right? So no matter how much you try to influence or pitch separately or try to dictate, that is never going to work. That's a different thing. But ultimately, it's what I'm doing is for my reader, not for the clients, not for your clients. I am responsible for my readers. So that's it. If they want to read something, I will write that, not what you want me to write about your client.
So, what's that fine line, Gaurav, to be able to say, okay, this is where the boundary should be drawn, according to you,
So
as
it's case
someone who's
to
a
case.
recipient of so many emails or calls?
Yeah, no, it's case to case. So see, I mean, after some years in journalism and all that, when you see a pitch, you know if it makes for a story or not. So I personally will always say, I mean, will not try to say that let's see, let's think about it. I will say if it can fly or not. So it's as simple as that, case to case basis of story to story, client to client. If it fits, it fits. If it doesn't, it doesn't. There's no gray area there. It's yes or a no.
Which I think is brilliant, Gaurav. It's just to have that clarity. Which brings me to you, Sonali, running an agency, and you will obviously have a continuous churn of people who are cubs and then grow in. This constant thing where a list is thrown in and saying, hey, this is the list of people and call in. What do you think is that fine line that you would have to draw within the organization to foster that relationship between a very, very strong stakeholder, which is the media?
So throw the list and read the news every day. Read the papers. There is no list. We are not a BPO. We don't do calling. Lots of young people come to me and say, ma'am, at 11:30 to 2:30 is the time I have to do calling. And I'm like, what's calling? No, calling the media. I say, no, this is not a BPO. This is news. If you don't have the nose for news, don't be in PR. Read the papers, read their journalist stories, understand what they like, what interests them. And then, if you feel your client fits in, go and pitch the story. So, we have made it compulsory for everybody in our office to read one newspaper every morning, and we keep switching those papers according to the kind of clients and sectors they work in. We could have got a scanner done, we could have got a service which does all the news and sends it to your mailbox. but then they will not read the paper. And the whole point is you have to read the paper. It is, we are so lucky in PR. We have a dynamic playground. Every day a new column is announced, every day a new journalist is going out and pitching a story. There is a new series a newspaper might decide to do. I mean, look at us. How luckier do you want to be? Your whole research base is out there, and all you have to do is sit and read. It's not a complicated job.
Two more cubs coming in your way, Sonali, with that kind of an approach. Dipti, the question to you on this particular thing is, you all put out a strong statement on behalf of the industry to that pink paper, and also to be able to again play a balancing act between the constant struggle between sometimes it being out in the public, right? As communication professionals, I think very few actually call that out, but journalists tend to call that out, maybe in that moment, or maybe things happening. What is your take on it? What do you think can be done to effectively at least tell stories?
Yes, I would agree to Shunali that reading is most important. You need to understand. So, for me, the key word is research your journalist, right? What the journalist writes, what the beat is, how long he's been or she's been writing. I think that's very important. And I think I would acknowledge and agree to the fact that a lot of heavy lifting has to happen here from the PR fraternity, right? I think we are responsible and we have to make sure that we do this part of the homework, right? So it's important. And also what we have to remember, to Shonali's point, we want them to read newspapers, but I'm not going to say read newspapers only. Read is more important, because we are dealing with a very different crop of talent at this point in time. People who are the mobile generation and the internet generation. So it's like maybe newspapers is not working for them, but reading is still important. I would love them to go back to newspapers, no doubt about it, because if they don't see it, they don't feel it, they don't touch it. And the more we can, as facilitators, as a founder and as a CEO, what Sonali you are doing, I really encourage a lot of those people to have those kind of examples to be set within their organizations, which they may be doing. But I think we have to delicately manage the habits of the millennials and what they can. But in the end, the message I would leave is research your guys, read well, then only you will be doing justice to your job. And I'm just going to take another minute to give you an example. I think the opportunity to avoid the issues like what we really saw is, I think the fraternity came forward and talked, but social media is not the only place to vent out things, right? I think it's important to pick up the phone, have conversations. And that's exactly what we did when we saw it. We first made the conversation happen to say, hey, whatever said and done, we both know challenges, but let's not cross the line of respect, right? And I think it's that mutual respect that we need. And we really have to, in today's world, have a word in our life called empathy. Okay, so we have to be empathetic towards journalists, and the journalists have to be empathetic towards PR professionals. We both are doing our jobs in very difficult environment, to the point we made about the too much of information overload. So if that empathy is taken out of the equation, it's going to be difficult for all of us, right? So that's the opportunity to me.
Gaurav, you had hands up, and Sonali will take your question after.
Yeah.
Go for it, Gaurav.
No. See, I mean, I agree with Sonali and Deepti both on certain things that you said, that, it's great that you asked them to read at least one paper, but that's the very basic. I mean, frankly, when I was a student, I used to read 6 or 7 newspapers. Fine. Today it's not the case, but at least every PR and even journalist should read at least 2 to 3 newspapers. I'm not saying read through and through from top to bottom and every story, but at least you should know. It's very basic. When did this basic become such a great thing? I don't know, right? Second thing is, you said, those lists not calling exactly, rather than calling first. Earlier, I still have some friends in comms and PRs who had invested time in coming and meeting a journalist, right? Of course, after COVID, everything has changed. But the point is, if you can't call me and hold the conversation for more than 30 seconds, if you don't know what you are pitching about, if you don't know, if you are starting to read up the release saying that, hey, Gaurav, I've sent you a release. Okay, fine. I have not read the release. Now what? What is it about? Okay, 1 minute. And then if you open the release and then reading out the release, I'm not going to give you another 30 seconds, right? Because so the issue here is that the basics are not being followed by the youngsters. Just 1 minute. Sorry, being at home. Said it. Okay, so one is reading, understanding the journal, as you said, Deepika. The point is, I am writing on certain things. Suddenly, if you start pitching me completely different, which I've never covered, I mean, why will I talk to that person? Third is, and third, calling at any point of time, like you said, 11:30 to 2:30 is my calling time. No, every publication has a different timelines. You have to understand when is the right time. Is the journalist, prefer he or she prefers a call or a WhatsApp or an email, right? I get very, I don't like if a PR is sending me release on WhatsApp. WhatsApp is just to say, okay, we have sent something, but release photos, no, it's a complete no, right? So you have to and update the list. That's more important. Recently I was at an event, and one very big agency, very big agency, I won't take the name. So after that event, the account head, I'm sorry if I'm taking extra time, but the account head came and he was like, my team wants to meet. There were some 6 or 7 PR from junior to senior. Everyone sat and they were like, I got we were waiting for you since the morning, and we so I asked, okay, one particular junior associate, okay, how long have you been yeah, she said about a year now. And I asked her, okay, so what do you read and all? So she said, oh, I love your writing in ET. I'm like, it's 8 months that I have left ET. So you have exposed yourself, A, that you don't read newspaper, right? You don't update your list. So then after that, how do you talk to such people, right? And the account director got very embarrassed and he was like, sorry, no, and so I'm like, that kind of what you call training has to be there from top to bottom. Not it won't be that you tell that these youngsters will know everything from the starting, right? It has to be inculcated from top to bottom. That's what my point is. Thank you.
Sonali, you wanted to take, and then Deepti, you can chime in. You almost covered my next question, which is a very fun question, but Sonali, quickly on this particular
So
topic.
I think the lack of empathy can also be attributed to the rise of social media. I saw this amazing documentary. I'm so sure you've all seen it. I think the more time you spend on social media, and social media is geared to show you only your point of view, right? You know that, right? Facebook, etc. Meta is playing with our emotions, literally, and they are only showing you your point of view. So I think we are bringing up a generation of kids who will always lack empathy. And the second point, which I am picking up from Gaurav, is diligence. When you live on Google, when your source of news is WhatsApp, you are going to never be diligent. We used to sit, I remember, a couple of years ago, now of course all my newspapers titles I read online, but there was a time when I used to sit at 9 a.m. in the morning with this big stack of newspapers and go through all of them and see who was writing on what. And I think that sense of diligence has gone from young people today. And no matter how hard we as senior people try, and I'm sure Komal, you and I have had many soul searching conversations on this. This is a very, very complicated and difficult thing to address with young people because they feel that everything is available on a click of a button. Why is this old fuddy duddy boss of mine telling me to read? You
That
know,
requires a session by itself, Sonali. And
yeah, but I
I
want to
think
make one more point. So, Gaurav, to answer you, I hope nobody from my office is seeing this. I have told them that if you send a press release on WhatsApp, it's an illegal. It's illegal. You have to send it from your official email, otherwise you can be sued. So now they've all started sending press releases on email because I
well,
realized they're
whatever
sending
works.
press releases on
Second,
WhatsApp to journalists, and I
I
had
have
a
a
heart
simple
attack.
rule. I have simple rule. I tell you once that please don't send it here. If you acknowledge that and still you send it, I block the number.
No,
It's
I
the
hope nobody from
simple.
my office ever sees this session. I've actually told them that because I've told them, email is official communication. You cannot use your personal WhatsApp to send a press release. So yeah, this is the way I've tried to
I
counter
agree
that.
because I think a lot of the personal and professional space gets blurred in the lines of business we are. But one must respect that privacy. I have reached out to Gaurav on a Saturday, but it starts with an apology, I remember. And when it's set, it's like, okay, back off. Let's talk about the personal space after. Dipti, you have something to add there. I saw your hand going up.
Yeah, so I think it's about time to going back to school. So I think even if it's an opportunity of unlearn and learning again, right? So I think no, in the business of public relations, media relations is a significant part, right? And which really starts with knowing the person, paying the visit, things what Gaurav was saying. I know that COVID has put in new dimensions, but I think when we can go out and are meeting relatives and friends and everybody now, so why don't we take that reigns back really strongly and upfront. And secondly, to the point, like what Sonali was saying, that there is a culture that you're building in the organizations. Like, in my kids' school, they have this first 40 minutes as a reading hour today to inculcate the, we I think I would say every PR firm should kind of have that reading hour, so that you can feel and touch the newspapers and be out of that. The last point I want to make is, it's just not people who are already in the profession. There's a hell lot of work that needs to happen at the academia front to meet people who are going to be entering the profession. And I have the opportunity of kind of visiting a lot of colleges, speaking in there, and I don't think so we are doing enough on that. And that's something, as a message, I'll also like to leave out, because a lot of people who are in the communication colleges are coming forth. I mean, I was in one lecture, and I'm not going to name the institute, but in my lecture about public relation, I said, do you know Pankaj Doval, do you know this? And surprisingly, they didn't know any of those names, which was like an eye opener for me. So what if you're not reading? I mean, this guy has six headlines, and to him, on technology, IT, auto, and whatever. And if you don't know, a couple of journalists, or the beat you're following, or the passion that you have, and it was really an eye opener for me, that going back and updating our curriculums, maybe doing more experimental work, innovations around there, if you're serious about entering the profession. And as PRCI, frankly, those are the little baby steps we are taking. We just this year have appointed 6 student presidents of colleges like XIC, IIMC. So we are empowering them to understand what they are not getting in their colleges, and what they would like to learn from professionals and media. And we are really looking at opportunities to bridge those kind of gaps, because, as I said, it's time to go back to schools and do the hygienes, which Gaurav said. These are the basics, and we can't take away those basics.
True, we need to get back to the drawing board in doing that, Dipti. Which brings me to a very interesting part of our conversation. We understand that we have to work as one solo unit. That's very understood, A, to attract better talent. Second, to attract qualitative talent, which is here to stay and not keep jumping a different industry basis, different things. So, your quick take on one real issue that is deepening this divide, and your solve what you propose. Let's start with you, Sonali. One issue on this divide which keeps happening, and what's your solve on it? This will be a 30-second question each.
Brands have to lower their expectations.
Okay, and so the question and answer is one. Brands have to lower the expectation. Who bells the cat there? Gaurav, your take on this?
No, I agree. But Sonali, you have to, as the mediator between client and the journalist, it's your job. You have to tell them also that what you are expecting is
I do
not
that
possible.
every day. Every day.
I'm sure. But, no, and with the divide, if you say between the PR team and the journalists, that is only because see, we get about 150 mails every day, plus that many messages, that many calls. So if it is not important, if it is not, and as I again I will come back to, if you can't hold a conversation after 30 seconds, you don't get a time, and then it's always stay different. Build relationships. Please spend time in going and meet the person. If not meeting, calling, and not calling at odd hours, but calling and understanding what the person is doing, and building a relationship, and then going and pitching the story.
So, sorry, I want to say one more thing here. I want to say that there are certain brands who have given us a lot of space to build relationships. Unfortunately, they are getting fewer and far between. Today, we fixed an RBM with a very reputed newspaper for one of our founders, and she turned around and said, "But if they're not going to give me a story, why should I meet the journalist?" And I found that so transactional. And I said, "This person deserves the PR they're going to get, which isn't." Because if you are not ready to invest your time in meeting a journalist and telling your side of the story, and if you are going to be so transactional as a founder of a company, then you're not never going to be able to invest in the right kind of relationships with media. On the flip side, I have a founder who says, "I'm happy to go to an office and meet people and tell them about myself," and you can guess who gets the best PR.
Dipti, your quick take, problem and solve.
I think my problem is perceptions. We have built too long perceptions of how things happen typically, and it's time to change those, right? Perception that this is how a media will react, perceptions that, so Gaurav, to the point that you said there are lists, but there are also, there are also people who may not be following the list. But I think sometimes the perceptions are skewed so heavily that that's becoming the narrative, right? So I think that is what, if we can change, we bring out the good things as well. And I'll give you one example of, I've served in the global market. I was in US for 4 years. The biggest of the news, and I want to share this with my all the fellow communicators who are listening here, it wasn't about the press release. It was three media targets, three who were just right for a story. And that is what it was really. So I think, again, this perception that only press releases, news can go out only like this, that all needs to change. And there is an education that has to happen at all sides. To Sonali's point, the education to the clients is very important, equally important, right? Clients and conversations with journalists, clients telling the agencies. I think it's a time of more transparent conversations. And I'd like to also put one point through that, let's have this as a level playing field between corporates and agencies. We all are here to tell good stories together. And this is the mindset that we have to create for us to be that stronger bond, so that we put the best position forward for journalists. And with the perceptions, again, back to the journalists, let's not build the perception that the client will be truthful and the agency will not be. Everybody's hands sometimes are tied. So let's look through those clouds and see what's the reality. Because um, I would say one thing, for journalists, you're still in a better spot, frankly. You have your independence. You can write what you want to. You can dig the story. You will have your named, unnamed sources. But the pressure of what's the right thing needs to go out will always lie on the other end, right? So if that maturity is what we will all deal with, I think it'll be a different story.
Anybody wants to chime in before we go to audience questions, which are tons of them?
Okay, just one. No, I mean, if I'm 2 points here. One is, you know, uh, as a journalist, I have believed this, that and have seen this. And biggest of my stories have never come from press releases. A press release will never be a big story. Press release is something which a company wants disseminate. It's like more wide and whatever reach they can receive, right? And I believe that a PR or a comms person will never give you a story. What breaking story we want as a journalist, it will never come. You may facilitate. So if I have some info, you may facilitate uh, to get more details and get the right, as you said, the right story out. But more often than not, what happens is your client doesn't want the story out. The story is not what you want out. The story is what you don't want out, right? As a journalist, for me, that's the story. And that is where we are on the opposite ends, because you will try to stop the story and I will try to put that out. That's the conflict which happens a lot.
Which is also the job, Gaurav, which very aptly put, right? Which is also the job both sides play beautifully. Going to take audience questions because after this segment, we have a coffee with Komal Rapid Fire, which is very interesting, unknown to yours. I'm going to put 3 questions on the things. Hamper will reach you. Of course, there is a hamper. You get coffee with Komal. So back on that, let's take quick audience questions. I'm going to direct it to one panelist each. The first one, Deeptie, this is for you, I would give you. How does building the brand reputation change in the last few years? And what role will media play there? Quick 30 seconds on it.
I would say collaboration is the word. Let's educate each other. If they want stories, give them the facts, have the patience to understand that where they are coming, find the right angle, and be prepared to say that there may be right things and there may be things which even the brands need to do. So be open to that.
So somebody's written it is far more tough and difficult for consumer facing PR teams and business brand teams. Gaurav, you're sitting on both sides now. You're covering, I mean, consumer side and which is ecosystem at large as well as the business side of it. Do you think it's tougher navigating in for you? And Sonali, I'd love your take also on it.
No, no. I think stop. I mean, the question is more for the PR side, because again, what I'm doing is with the lens of business only. So my consumer beat is also. So I think it's more for the consumer PR versus business PR. I don't think it's for me.
You wouldn't distinguish between both. Fair enough, because for Mint, you would be looking at it from a business lens. So now you work with both the business side of businesses as well as the lifestyle, if I may say so. Do you think it's more difficult for that side? And your quick take on how do you think can
No,
this
I
solve?
think the problems change on each side, right? The story with businesses, they have their own challenges and agendas, and with consumer, they will have their own challenges and agendas. Does the storytelling change on both sides? Yes, definitely. So I think whenever the storytelling changes, the challenges will also change. And I don't think anything is more difficult or less difficult. I think things have changed a lot in the lifestyle industry. Komal, you and I are both aware of the same. Marketing mandates are tougher. But then, if brands want to make tons of money, they can't expect a free spin for the rest of their lives. All right. So, I think it's today about marketing of working hand in hand with marketing of lifestyle publications, of trying to understand how to woo your consumer in a better way. And I think brands are becoming more and more creative. We have also been pushed, and I'm sure so have you, to think more creatively because of this reason. And I think that's a good thing, right? We can't keep doing the same thing for the past 20 years that we've been doing. Things have to change, they have to evolve. Our consumers have evolved. It's a new
That's
generation that
true.
is consumer today. So their consumption of media, like we all have decided, is very different. So, and I think today's consumer wants to be at the center of attention. They don't want to know what Aishwarya Rai, to anyway is too old now. They don't want to know, say, what Alia Bhatt is using all the time. They want to know what I'm going to use, what's going to look good on me. I'm the heroine. I mean, for Gen Z,
Lots
Aishwarya
of
Bhatt,
questions,
I told I
lots of
love her.
questions
Please
your way.
don't hold me for that.
So,
Lots of
hey,
questions coming your way. But Deepti,
yeah.
sorry, you wanted to chime in?
Yeah, so Komal, and because having served large organization, I think what's changed as well is this integrated communications between marketing and PR as brands, right? Companies who are doing it well, who are integrated, they know how to put the best message and story out by using both the mediums very well. So I think a lot of corporates who have recognized the value that a combined integrated communication which has PR and marketing both are doing fabulous jobs, right? And I think that's what will really be the call of the day in the future. And that is where the mandates, whether it's a ad agency or a PR agency, building on that story and amplifying each other. But the more integrated you are internally as brands, you will see lot more better work coming out.
True. Dipti, this is a very interesting question for you. So we've all touched upon the media side of it, which is the outcome. We have the agencies, which are the facilitators. We also have employees as stakeholders and clients, which are pushing down a certain narrative to be told, right? This is where the entire food chain, if I may say so, happens. While we are all about educating our teams to talk and say in a certain way, will PRCAI take up the job of also training corporates to have leveled expectations?
Absolutely. You hit the nail, and without spilling too much beans onto it, but we recently, just a month and a half ago, had a closed door meeting with top corporate communicators about what agencies, consultancies are doing well and what they can do better. And then we had a second round with all very senior, again, founders of the companies to say what corporate comms are doing better. So I think they both understand where the gaps are, and we are going to combine that, which will see some tangible outcomes coming out of it on the realms of standardization, code of conducts, and those kind of things. So stay tuned for that. But that's, as an association, is what we are doing. So it's about having the right conversations in the right environment. And as I mentioned in the beginning of the talk, our environment has changed completely, data driven, AI, technology, fakeism in news, and everything. So we have to really understand the agency side and the corporate communications together, be into it together, and solve those situations.
We should expect like a body, the way advertising, etc., have, which has equal stakeholders and professional guidelines coming in, which are put in stone. Is that what we would like to
I am
hear?
saying, as I'm saying, in two capacities. As an individual, I always had one Ford team, and that team was not my internal communications PR people. My consultancy partners was one team, and I think I know many corporates are doing it, and many are not. As an association, our job is to tell them best practices, and that is what you will see in a way that we could possibly do that. If you go to our website currently, we do have a certain code of conducts on how you treat your vendors, how you treat your employees, and those kind of things. So these are extensions of what the new environments are throwing, how we should bring in those best practices to able to know how you really raise the bar of the industry at large. And that is what the association is here to do, and that is what you will see as some outcomes in the new year.
Lovely. That's a welcoming change to balance all. Interesting question, this for you, Gaurav. How come when there is a journalist PR spat, most media feel it is fine to rant about it? You don't find PR folks doing that. What happened to all the wellness and better world talk during COVID? Do we need a pandemic to help people understand that? They need to be civil to each other. All guns out here. What is your
No,
take,
no. See,
Gaurav?
personally, I would say it's not right for anyone to rant on social media. Be it journalist or PR. I mean, come on, be mature. We are doing our jobs. They are doing. I mean, you are doing your jobs. We are doing our jobs. It's not. It's not that one is better than other. I don't know why this whole approach of. I mean, as journalists, why many have this holier than thou approach? No, we are the same. We are doing our job. So I personally feel that renting out on Twitter or Facebook or somewhere is just wrong. Yes, sometimes what happens is, you get so pissed off or you get so frustrated with something time and again, then you don't know what to do. So, in personally, what I do is that I will, again, I don't think that's a good thing to do either. But okay, and I will give you again an example. One agency, somebody called me asking for, say, telling about some pitch, and I said, this is not something which I cover. So this person was like, "Okay, can you help me with who covers this?" First of all, you are on that account, you should know which journalist covers your client. I told them the name. Okay, this is the person, please get in touch. Can you help me with her contact and email address? I said, listen, email is there in the website, in the print. Whenever this person write, there is an email ID. Please, and number I can't give you. Like you have your sheets, right? Then she said, okay. Call me again after 5 minutes. No, but can you help me with the number? I'm not getting it. I'm like, which agency you are from? That person told me the agency. I said, okay, who do you report into? She told me about the person. I said, can you please ask this person to give me a call? No, he only asked me to call you. I'm like, okay, now I am really, really pissed off, right? A senior will not never ask. I mean, I hope so. I mean, please correct me if I'm wrong. But Komal, will you ask your colleagues to call me again or any journalist again to check the no, no, you only give the number? I don't think so, right?
I
So
think
that
it's misinformed or a
exactly,
cover up,
exactly.
perhaps.
So the worst thing, and I'm not too proud of it, but then I call up the seniors that please, you look into this. This is not the right way of doing it. Coming back to that basics, but this is not the. So I try and talk to them first. I try not to shout on the younger ones because that is very demoralizing. But that's my personal view. But then I will complain to the seniors if water is above the head. That's what my view is. I don't think renting out on social media is the right way of doing it. Thanks.
Lovely. So now, I think the last question, I think I would give this to Sonali. before we go into the rapid fire. How do you manage a situation when you're not able to crack a story for your clients, especially when it's a decade-long relationship and an important event? How would you do that?
I think when you have a decade-long relationship with a client, they trust you. Okay, and they will understand that there is something that's not going to get covered. So there are a lot of clients who get that very well. I mean, we've had a situation where we've gone to a client and said, look, there is no dump in the story, there is no point even doing a press release around it, please don't waste your time, don't waste our time, it's not going to happen. And they have trusted us and outcomes have been better, right? There have been times when the client has refused to understand, and if they are so press release focused, which is so, I would say, dinosaur, what are such a dinosaur approach to PR today, which is the press release chapwa do, please. Uske liye hai PR news wire, go there, get your press release printed. You'll get your 50 links, go back happy, your SEO will jump up. But if you really want to crack a story, then that takes time. Good stories take time, both sides, for us to be able to create that content and create a good pitch and give it to the journalist, and for the journalist also to be convinced and then do the research. This is not something that happens overnight. So I think for those kind of clients, there is PR Newswire. They're doing a very good service. We also use them when we need to. And then if you really want stories and the client is ready to put in the work, because it is work from both sides, to put in the work to be able to work with us on that content, that then they get their stories. That's the way I look at it.
Lovely.
I,
I have
I
one
would
more
say,
question.
yeah, I would say all the PR people to think first the question, what's the meat in the story? Before you pick up the call on the journalist. So ask that question to yourself first. What's the meat in the story? If you have the meat, then talk to the journalist. I think that's one simple tip which all PR professionals should follow.
Lovely. So it's an interesting question, which is on the lines of today, across everybody wants to learn but don't want to be taught, right? This is something we all are facing in our ecosystems. Each of you to give me your one take on how to get the newer talent to learn better and motivate them to read and research thoroughly. So let's start with you, Deeptie. Then we
I would
take the
say
question for
respect
Gaurav and
the
Sonali.
profession. That is my word. Respect the profession. This is a great profession. Both are great professions. So respect, value, rest will fall in place. To all the emerging and the aspirants who are wanting to come into the profession, please come in informed by choice and not by chance. I think the times have changed. So you should understand what this profession takes, what it demands, how you need to be upskilled, honed, and prepared to be here to really do that great job.
Sonali, what would you do to
Learning
get this
comes from
generation to
humility.
learn and teach?
Learning comes from humility. It's a very me generation. They think they know everything, and what they don't know, they can find on Google. So the moment you realize that you need to learn, and I think even today I would want to learn and research, and I think that's the distinction that I feel, that humility is very important. I wouldn't, maybe our generation was too humble, we were very scared of our seniors, and this generation is very brash, and I love them for their brashness. They can bring about revolutions in countries, but unfortunately they need to harness that energy, and diligence cannot be replaced. That's my approach. Diligence cannot be replaced by anything.
Gaurav, for your ecosystem.
I would say be true to yourself and your profession. That's it. I mean, try to do best what where you are. So if you try to do that, you have to learn, and you will learn. There's no shortcut to success. That's it. Hard work is the way.
Lovely. Dipti, one last question coming for you. A lot of questions on PRCI. Creating a more collaborative and cohesive world that creates an industry is a good work culture phenomena. Where should this begin? Should it be colleges? And when you're in the thick of this industry, is there also a retirement plan?
Retirement plan for the industry? I
Yeah.
absolutely not. This industry is a sunshine sector. So, guys, the future is right here. Communications is the future, which is connecting the world. So, come in prepared. As I said, be skilled to do it. And what, as an industry, you should expect to be, it's no longer even a local world, it's a global world. So aim for high, learn from everywhere, and be ready to embrace that.
Gaurav, there's a question for you. So there is a real issue about interesting content being shared by both. How do you define interesting, and how do we bridge as PR professionals to journalists this better? How do we give you that content better?
It's the same thing, right? Interesting is a very subjective term, right? So for what is interesting for me may not be interesting for a Bombay Times or for a uh, uh, Times of India or even a Hindustan Times. That's the difference. So ultimately, it boils down to the same: understanding your reader and understanding the client and the journalist.
It's a beautiful session. I think we got out some very, very pertinent points. Tarun, I'm going to move to the rapid fire section, which is something we're looking forward to. I think we've dealt with a gamut of very, very interesting points today. So thank you everybody for being your candid best, the raw energy sort of showcase itself. Let's start with you, Dipti. Uh, your time starts now. Your emoji that best describes journalists and one that describes PR professionals.
Well, I think the happy and the sad one, but let's reverse it. Or maybe have
Okay,
the equals. Yeah.
you'll have the equal emoji. That's a great start. One advice to your media practitioners and one to agency practitioners.
Empathy, both of you. And for my media practitioners, please research, read before you pick up the phone.
What's your pet peeve with both? An ideal situation, therefore, to create a healthy ecosystem would be.
I would just say talk conversations. We are in the world of communications, communicate better.
So pick up the phone and talk, and not needing to do it publicly.
Yeah.
Well, yours is a milder version of the one we hopefully see more stuff come out now. Gaurav, this is for you. If you had to choose between breaking a major news story first and ensuring its accuracy, which one will take precedence and why?
Always accuracy. I mean, I would rather be late than wrong. Always.
Lovely. Share one behind the scenes moment from your career that the public might find surprising or entertaining with respect to PR.
Oh my God, there are many. There are many. I mean, one I would say met a very senior fellow recently with head of a PR agency, and that PR agency tried and successfully stopped multiple of my stories uh, from getting into print. I mean, that's the biggest pet peeve, right? I mean, when your stories don't get published when while they are correct. And the head was telling me that later, Gaurav, I'm sorry, but that's my job, right? Because my client didn't want the story out. So I said, my problem is not with you. You did your job, and congrats to you that you managed your job. My problem is with my company that they let it happen. So
Very recent episode,
I
I,
wouldn't
I
say
must.
recent or old. I mean, let's not get there which company and all, but yeah, that's the fact. Yeah.
The last one for you. If you could advise one PR company or person on something, who would it be and why? And what would it be?
No, no, to
You can take
everyone,
names, it's fine.
not one, to everyone is the same thing. Just spend some time in building relationships, building the rather than just picking up call and
We've heard that, Gaurav. We need more. So if that's one person, you may not want to name that, but if you had to give that advice saying Madam or Sir X, what would it
okay.
be?
So Mr. X, I would say, and I've told him also that the best practice that you follow, even when you call or message, before calling you message and you message your name with respect, with regards in your name, just try and tell your team also to do the same thing, and it will be a beautiful place. Thank you.
Well said. Some very interesting answers there. Sonali, for you. If you were working on the damage control for the latest pink paper Justin Jess column, how would you tackle it?
Okay, you've got me really stumped there. I would ignore it.
You wouldn't want to give it more fire.
No, I think I was just watching Coffee with Karan today morning, and I saw Alia and Karina's answers. And I love Kareena Kapoor's attitude because she doesn't watch her own movies. She doesn't care about the trolls. She's very focused on what she has to do. And I think we have to take a leaf out of that. We are in a public space, there will be damage, and that's the best way to deal with it.
Lovely. If you could advise one journalist on something, who and what would it be?
Surprisingly, I would tell a lot of young journalists also to do their research. Uh, I get a lot of young journalists today who don't know anything, who are actually using PR to spoon feed them. I've literally written copy for some of them and cleaned it up and sent it back to them. Be like, please don't write like this. Don't write like this, please. I beg of you. So I think the grounds that we have with a lot of young people in our own organizations, I'm sure senior journalists are dealing with that in their own. So read more and study more and write grammatically correct language, English or Hindi or whatever it is.
And stop
The
using
last one for
ChatGPT.
you.
Sorry?
Sorry, Gaurav, you were saying?
And stop using ChatGPT.
I can actually now, I asked my team, this has been written by AI, right? You can actually make out it's been written by AI.
That's true. That's a different episode altogether. The last one for you, Sonali. If you had one superpower wish in your profession, what would it be?
Getting my clients to see reason. I find most journalists, 99% journalists to be very reasonable people. They're also doing their job. Uh, I will not say the same for influencers. I feel that's a different conversation itself. But I feel that I would love, if I had a superpower, I would love to sit and educate my clients on what the media is. Media doesn't owe you a story. You owe them good content. So if I could be able to reiterate that, I think that would be very nice.
I think it's not the superpower. We have Deeptie here taking that and trying to make sure that is happening. And so that completes the rapid fire. Thank you for being fantastic panelists, getting a very, very candid conversation out. Tarun, over to you.
Thank you so much to each one of you for having joined us today for this session. And let's not stop the conversation here. Keep posting comments, tagging the panelists, and we will keep it going. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, everybody. Thanks for
Thank
having
you.
us.
Have a
Have a
lovely
good
weekend,
weekend.
everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you
Lovely.
so much. Wonderfully moderated. And thank you, Deepti and Gaurav. It was really fun interacting with you.
Gaurav,
Same here.
especially to you for being that candid and listening, right? So I think really appreciate that.
Thank you. Thank you.
Absolutely, absolutely. And thanks, a big thank you to Komal for moderating this and taking out your time for being a part of this panel.
Pleasure's all ours. We will stay all connected. Thank you, everybody. Have a lovely weekend.
Thank you.
Bye.
So that was our November live session. Let's keep the conversation going, keep posting comments, tag the panelists, and let's keep having this conversation to try and create a collaborative and cohesive world together. This was just the start. We need to do a lot of work, but that work can only happen if we keep talking. And keep watching. We will meet you at our next live session on PRPOI very soon.